Welcome to the Next Level Confident Podcast. We're your hosts, Frankie and
Janelle.
Thank you for joining me on my podcast, JNL&x the first. How are you today?
Thank you for having me, Frankie. Well, really, Francis Joseph Vignone the third.
It's the Francis podcast takeover.
It's the Francis.
We have a furry guest.
We have a furry guest
staring at us
named Denny. Hi, baby girl. She's whining and wagging her tail and wants to play with her ball, which this may be.
If you're watching the video, you can see her little head poking in.
No.
You could.
Oh, yeah, right there. Oh, yeah.
Right
nice. Yeah. Our videos are actually going to be posted on YouTube soon because I'm hiring a social media manager, and the social media manager will be posting all of these videos on YouTube. So you'll actually be able to watch the video sometime very soon, which I'm excited about.
There we go.
Okay, so today's podcast, we want to talk a little about the holidays and just how obviously the holidays are a very fun time, a lot of parties, a lot of family time, all that good stuff, but also can be a really tough season for a lot of people. And it can just be a time that reminds you of your singleness, or it can be a time, honestly, even if you're married or in a relationship, whatever, it can be a time that reminds you of all the dreams that haven't come true yet, or all the things that you thought, oh, by the end of this year, surely this will happen. And then those things didn't happen maybe the way you thought they would, or maybe literally like seeing no progress or no movement. So we just want to talk a little about that and share some Bible verses around it, share some stories, all that good stuff. So
it's going to be a good episode.
Yeah. I'm hoping it's heartfelt, you know?
It's not going to be a downer episode. It's just going to be honest and vulnerable and real and raw. No?
I agree. It's not going to be some sad podcast. I mean, we're here to raise your spirits, not, I don't know, make it even sadder, but I think it's also like authenticity. I think when people realize that they're not alone, I think that there's actually something so comforting about that. And it brings a lot of hope to realize that you're not alone. So
it's true.
Yeah.
As always, should we start with one of our cards?
Yes. Don't we usually start with our testimonial first?
Oh yeah, go with that.
Okay. We're going to do the testimonial and then we'll do our deck of cards. So today I'm going to share a win from one of my students inside of Attract Your Husband Academy. And this is Katie. She put this on the page a couple weeks ago on our Facebook page, because we have a Facebook page for all the ladies in the academy. And she said, "Hi ladies, hope all is well. I wanted to write in here because I did Janelle's Attract Your Husband Academy course and have since met my dream man."
Let's go.
Woo! We've been official for almost a month and couldn't be happier. If anyone was on the group call in July, it's the brother that I pulled a Janelle on. And so for context, if you've listened to the podcast where Frankie and I talk about how we met, I asked a couple, do you have anyone that's tall, dark, and handsome, loves Jesus? Like, I really put myself out there to a couple that I had just met. And they're like, actually, yeah, we have someone for you. And then they introduced us on Instagram. So basically, this gal on one of our calls was like, I pulled a Janelle at work today. So anyway, it worked.
But to clarify, I don't know, it's kind of confusing. Like, I pulled a Janelle on the brother. She asked the brother to introduce her if she knows any brother knows any guys.
No, the brother is the guy. So she asked a colleague of hers, do you have any guys?
The way you read it sounded like she pulled a Janelle on her brother, which sounded weird.
It's a brother. I'm a little confused, but I'm pretty sure what she meant is that I think that she had a female colleague. It wasn't like a friend of her brother's. It was a female colleague who had a brother, I think, who she introduced.
I just misheard it. I just wanted to be clear about it.
Yeah.
Anyway, now I'm ruining the story.
I don't get what you're thinking it was.
It just sounded like she pulled a Janelle on her brother is what I thought I heard it as.
Oh, so you thought she went to her brother and her brother introduced her to someone?
No, maybe I just was overcomplicating it. Never mind. Okay. Sorry, folks. Speed through that part.
Yeah, I'll read it again. It says, if anyone was on the group call in July, it's the brother that I pulled a Janelle on, which, yeah, I don't think she gave any
Yeah, total. So that's why I'm saying that, because when it's...
and I'm not saying maybe other people are thinking that too.
Does it say anything? Hi, ladies. I hope all is well. I wanted to write in here because I did Janelle's Academy course and have since met my dream man. We've been official for almost a month, and I couldn't be happier. If anyone was on that group call, it's the brother that I pulled a Janelle on. Hope that is inspiring. Yeah. So if you're not in your course, it's confusing because it sounds like she pulled a Janelle on her brother. That's just the assumption. Because nobody would know who that brother is.
No one would think that because it says the brother. She would never call her own brother the brother.
Still, it's confusing.
Okay. Well, I think I've clarified it now, don't you think?
I know. I'm just making sure.
Okay. I think it's pretty clear.
If you're on my side, let us know. If you're on Janelle's side, let her know.
Yeah, I'm very curious to know if anyone... But, your brain probably works how some people's brain works. I'm not making fun of how you thought of it.
I know you're not making fun of it.
I just don't know how much further to clarify on it because we're just reading the same words right now. But I
was saying is we were talking about the relationship, the brother, blah, blah, blah. Let's move on.
Let's move on, everyone.
And let's go to the love map card.
I'm literally not done talking. Good Lord. Okay. Wow. Here we are. Yet? Moments where you just want to punch your husband in the face. Anyway,
then he
back
got
to Katie.
Sorry, Katie. Still a beautiful story.
Still about you, girlfriend. I'm so sorry, Frankie. Completely stole your light here. Hope this inspiration to some of you and proof that the work that you put in will pay off. And thank you, Janelle, for the life-changing course.
Come on.
So proud of her. So excited for her. Excited to follow this journey of her now being with her dream man. And so proud of you, girl, for putting yourself out there. And so I will say, if you have not watched my masterclass, this will be a plug for my masterclass because I do teach some of this within that free masterclass. So the free masterclass is linked down below. And I also have to share, I've actually never really talked about this on the podcast. And I feel like I created this like a month before I took the sabbatical. So I haven't talked about it enough. But I also created a PDF that's only $17.99, and it's called How to Leverage Your Network for Amazing Dates. And it's actually a step-by-step process for leveraging your network. So kind of similarly like to how I met Frankie, similar to how my client Katie that I was just talking about met her person. This is a way to actually be able to leverage your network so that you can go on more dates with people who you're meeting that are... I can't give you too much of the like nitty gritty of it because it's not just simply friends of friends. There's more of a science to it than just being like, ask your friend, like obviously. So anyway, $17.99, and I will link that below, but also you can go to my Instagram profile and click in the link in bio. There's the word. Been a minute since I said that. Click the link in bio and you can purchase it for $17.99 there and follow my step-by-step framework. So it's pretty cool. But anyway, we're very excited for Katie, and it's fun when I get to hear stories like that where I'm like, wow, cool, the course works.
Working.
Like I know that, but it's nice to have reminders as well when I have my clients meet their dream man, and then the wins help push me along too. So
good job, Katie.
Yeah, Katie, proud of you, girl. Okay, Frankie, passing it to you.
Are we doing the love map cards?
The love map cards.
You can go first.
No.
Since you love me so much.
Oh, okay.
Whoever loves the other person more goes first. Good job.
We love each other equal.
I know. That's why I picked a card at the same time.
Oh.
Just kidding.
Oh, okay. Okay. What is your partner's favorite musical group, composer, or instrument? Oh, this is so obvious. Forrest Frank.
Oh, yeah. Let's go.
Duh. You were in the top 0.1% of Spotify listeners, right? Is that what it was?
That's right.
For Forrest Frank.
That's a cool question because it used to be you would just go off of like gut, but now you can go off of data.
I have literal data of your favorite musical group, composer, which I guess is not your instrument. Your favorite instrument, I think, is a guitar.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that or no?
I like the guitar.
I bought him a guitar for
my birthday.
Your birthday last year. So that was December 1st of last year. Frankie just had his birthday. He turned 34 last week. Happy birthday, Frankie.
Thank you.
And you haven't gotten that much use out of the guitar I gave you, right?
It just looks cool in my office.
It does look very cool. But every once in a while you pick it up and strum it a little bit.
Yeah.
Should I buy you lessons?
No.
No? Oh, okay. that idea was shot down real quick. Cool.
I should learn lessons or learn the guitar. My Uber driver this morning coming back from Dallas was actually his dad used to be a pastor.
Oh, cool.
And he is from the Congo, moved to the States in 94. And
I'm sorry, I have to ask a question. Is the Congo Africa?
Congo.
Is that Kenya? Africa?
No, Congo.
I'm sorry,
Conga.
I know. I don't know the content. I don't know where that is in the world.
I think it's Africa. But so the guy was playing French music in the car.
Oh, they speak French there? Yeah.
Yeah, so it's primarily a Congo. Oh my gosh, that shows you how freaking
Congo.
That shows you how
he's Googling it right now.
Worldly I am. Not. I think it's Africa.
Well, I don't think you're probably the only person maybe who doesn't know exactly where in the world Congo is. And sometimes the Conga thing's hard because like in Spanish,
it's
masculine,
Africa. It's
feminine.
like right in the middle of Africa.
Okay.
So anyway, they speak primarily French is like their main language, but they speak 3 other languages there.
Holy cow.
So anyways, he came here in 94 and he basically taught this group of like children how to play, and they ended up making this like super band, and now they like play at their church and they like play at the Dallas Symphony, and like
Whoa,
they're like
cool.
super. I think they're like pretty famous in Dallas. They might be more famous than that. But
do you remember? Did you write down the name so we can listen to the music?
He didn't tell me the name of it.
Oh dang, maybe we can.
I'm gonna find it though.
Yeah.
He was a little bitter about it. Not bitter because I guess not to share his story too much, but he like it was very interesting.
Sorry, Uber driver in Dallas.
He was like teaching these kids a bunch, and he was like, I wanted to like get them to the next level, but the pastor wanted to start getting them into starting to play more and like be on stages and perform. And he's like, they're not ready yet. They're not ready. And then I guess they had this like disagreement between when they actually were ready and then when the instructor thought they were ready. And he's like, it's like when you're building a plane, like, yeah, the plane can fly, but like it might not get that far. Like it can only go so high. He's like, they had a little bit more work to do. So
a stronger foundation to build. Yeah,
so it was good.
It's like meeting your husband.
I brought that up.
Sometimes you have to build a strong foundation to meet your husband or to like have any dream come to fruition, build a successful business. Anyway, I think that's cool.
Yeah.
Dang.
I talked to a lot of cool people this week on my Uber driver.
I love having conversations with Uber drivers.
Me too. I freaking every single person. The guy that took me to the airport, we talked about, I don't remember. Something good. It was like 5 a.m.
Wow.
And we talked.
Something good. So good that you can't remember.
I don't know. It was just interesting.
But you remember enjoying the conversation. Was nice. Yeah. Well, sometimes people don't remember what you say, but they remember how you made them feel. So that Uber driver, you don't remember the conversation, but you remember you felt good having it with him.
Yeah, it was good.
So that's a good nugget of wisdom to remember, because sometimes we get so in our head about like, oh, what did I say in that conversation? And did I say the right things or whatever? But really, it's not always about that. Like sometimes it's literally just about how you made someone feel and making someone feel seen and heard. And yeah, I feel like you and I, we obviously do have times where we like don't talk a lot to the Uber drivers, but we also have a lot of like really cool God stories of speaking to Uber drivers. And yeah, just like people we've invited to church, or like one time when I was in Charlotte visiting my brother and I Ubered to, this is kind of an interesting thought that I just had. So I like injured my back, which most people who are probably listening to the podcast know that I've like off and on been praying for healing for a back injury, and also doing everything that's supernatural when it comes to like prayer and everything. And then obviously doing everything in the natural as well to heal my back injury that happened like probably close to 4 years ago now. But anyway, I had a flare up when I was in Charlotte visiting my brother because I played volleyball for like 2 hours and I was like, I'm going to be fine. And then unfortunately it flared up after that from jumping in the sand. It was like sand volleyball. Anyway. And for those who don't know, I played volleyball year round in high school. So I take my volleyball pretty seriously. Anywho, so I had to go to acupuncture there because I was like when I have a back flare up, I can like barely walk or like even get out of bed. Like it's like I'm hunched over, like the hunchback of Notre Dame. And anyway, I had an Uber there and then Uber back. And on my Uber back from that, I believe that's when this was, because anyway, I got to pray over a guy who if I remember correctly, he was, I don't know a nice way to say this, but he was a very, very large man and had a lot of health issues. And so that's what kind of, you know, contributed to his size and everything like that. And I remember him telling me a few of his health issues. And I said, can I pray over you? And it was after we had parked and we were in my brother's driveway, I remember. And I prayed over him and prayed that God would heal his symptoms. And it's one of those things that's like, I'll never know. You know what I mean? Like in my mind, I'm like, God might have done like a crazy miracle in that man's life that day. This is what I was kind of thinking. I was like, wait, that's a crazy thought when I first started the story. What if like God radically changed and healed him in that moment? So God like used my pain and my injury of my back to be able to actually like put me in a situation where I got to pray over someone and that they got to experience radical healing.
Yeah.
And then like, it's like, that's just like a deeper thought in of itself of being like, okay, what are the times that maybe we're put in painful situations or really difficult situations, but what if like someone else's breakthrough is sometimes on the other side of that, you know? I know that's not all encompassing because of course there are some things that are just like very bad in the world. I don't know why sometimes when I talk, I think of like people who have been sexually abused or something that this doesn't count for any of that. But for other situations, I just think that sometimes you can go through hard things, but that sometimes like your hardship could actually be like pointing someone else towards something, or I don't know.
Well, I think God can use every situation to turn stuff around. Like even if it is sexual abuse, like if somebody's been through it and they got through it and like they have healed from it and have resources and stories to share with people to like help other people through the times when like they're, you know, either still going through it, God forbid, or like trying to get out of it or depressed or hurt or scarred or whatever. Like, I mean, God can use everything for good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like God didn't put them in that situation, but like there's still good and evil in the world. And like evil is going to be here until Jesus comes back. So God will use people, his children, to get people through that evil.
Yeah.
And point people back to God.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's not you can look at that and be like, oh, God like made this happen to me. And like everything happens for a reason. Like I think you kind of have to be careful with those types of words of like everything happens for a reason, which is not what you're saying.
No.
I know that's not what you're saying. I'm just making sure we're being like crystal clear with, we're not saying everything happens for a reason when it comes to those things. That's
different.
That's like fully demonic. Like someone being sexually abused is like fully demonic and fully darkness and fully Satan. And you can find healing. And once you've experienced healing, then you can go and help set other people free from similar things and help them on their healing journey.
Yeah, it's like God will use everything for good. I think it's twisted to everything happens for a reason. And those are two very different things. It's the same thing as like people say money is the root of all evil. That's not what the Bible says. The Bible says money can be a root of evil.
The love of
money can be a root of evil.
Yeah.
It says can be.
No. It says the love of money is.
Are you sure?
I'm 1,000% positive.
Okay.
It's not can be. The love of money will always be the root of evil. But it's not saying having money is evil.
Right.
But loving money and
I think
idolizing
there's different
it.
interpretations of that.
I'm
different versions in the
pretty
Bible.
sure there's no.
I should probably know that before I say it.
Yeah, let's look it up. Like, I think it's a good thing to know. I do know that to your point, like I'm agreeing with what you're saying, where I feel like I used to look at that verse and be like, money is evil.
Yeah, you're right. Money is not the root of all evil. The Bible verse that says, well, even Google thinks it. The Bible verse that says money is the root of all evil, Timothy 1:6-10. But that's not what the Bible says. The Bible, quote, word for word says, 1 Timothy 6:10, for the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. And some, by craving it, have wandered away from the faith and pierced themselves with many griefs. So they're basically combining two different terms, like money is the root of all evil, but they leave out for the love of money.
Like you're saying, even how Google is writing it, Google is saying.
Yeah, it's just deceiving.
Oh, interesting. I see. Yeah, the Bible verse that says money is the root of all evil. But yeah, I think if you look at the words to like what we're saying, it's the love of money is the root of all evil.
But that's why the Bible like doesn't there's no words in there there's no words added or no words taken away. Like everything has like a purpose in the Bible.
Yeah.
So it's like you can't just read that and take it out of context and like use it. You got to read the whole thing and take it in context and like read the whole sentence too.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's good. And I feel like, I mean, a whole other conversation we could have is like different verses that like were contextual for its time that like theologians have now looked at and been like, okay, why did it say that? Like there's a Bible verse that says like, basically women shouldn't be speaking in church.
mm-hmm.
And it's like, when you look at the context of it, it was talking about women interrupting in church and yelling out over the men. And it's because the women at that time, unfortunately, weren't educated properly. So that's why it says like, talk about it with your husbands when you get home or something, which I feel like now I need to like read that Bible verse too. But
yeah.
But I've heard some really good sermons like talking about that, because like we have female pastors, but a lot of times a lot of churches will be like, oh, there's no such thing. There should not be any female pastors because of this one Bible verse.
Yeah.
But you do have to take, like, sometimes there are certain Bible verses you have to understand the context of it.
I mean, most Bible verses you should want to understand the context of it.
Yeah. Like somewhere, I don't know. It is kind of interesting because it's like, it kind of can be a little confusing. Like, why are some more contextual and then why are some more black and white? You know what I mean?
That's true.
Because like some of the more black and white ones that we've talked about on here is like talking about sexual purity and waiting to have sex until you're married. So I do know there are people who will be like, oh, well, that was just contextual, and they'll try to like change that one. So I don't know. It's definitely interesting because you don't want to like pick and choose and splice different parts of the Bible. At the same time, there are contextual things in it, you know?
Yeah.
So that can be kind of tough, but
we should go to Bible school.
I know. We do want to do like an apologetics class or something like that, like to learn more how to, apologetics is like how to defend your faith. And I think you and I are both like pretty passionate about learning, like if you're talking to an atheist or something like that, like how do you properly defend your faith? And like, because it's not, you can just use Bible verses to defend your faith because like they don't believe in the Bible. So you have to also be able to like go deeper and more theological than just, well, the Bible says this, you know? So
yeah.
Cool. Well, I guess we should probably talk about our...
You didn't ask me my question.
Oh my gosh.
Oh wait, you did. That's how we started talking about the Congo. Sorry.
What was my question that I asked you?
What was my favorite musical instrument? Oh, I didn't ask you your question.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
I knew we were missing something. What is your partner's favorite animal? Denny. Easy answer.
Yeah, but what about like as
white tiger?
Yeah, that's true.
Is it still the case?
I think white tiger is still my favorite.
Why? Because they're fierce and they have piercing blue eyes normally?
Yeah.
Like you?
Okay, wait, this is actually perfect. I have to tell this.
Me, Denny. Sorry.
I have to tell this story. So I learned this is a great thing to try on dates. I used to do this all the time on every date I'd go on. So you want to act really incognito and you can be like, what's your favorite animal? And act like super cool about it, right? Don't give any context. And they're probably gonna laugh and be like, seriously? And they're like, yeah, seriously. And then they say their favorite animal and they'd be like, oh, love that. Like, why do you love them so much? And start asking some questions and have them like create descriptive words about why they love that animal so much. And then you're like, that's great. And then be like, so what's your second favorite animal? And then they're really going to start laughing and think you're super cheesy and stuff. And, you know, just laugh at yourself because it's funny. And then really like make them say an answer, their second answer, and then be like, why? And then have them describe it. And like, if they start to ask you like, this is just something funny that I do on my dates or something. And then after all of that, once you've taken a lot of mental notes, try to really remember everything that they say, then tell them, so the first animal that you describe when you say your favorite animal is how you view yourself. And then the second animal that you describe is what you're looking for in your partner. Now, I don't know if it's totally true, but it worked so well. And when someone did it to me, like this is how I know it worked so well for me, is someone asked me like, what's your favorite animal? And I was like, a white tiger. And they were like, why? And I'm like, oh, white tigers are just like fierce and beautiful and have piercing blue eyes. And they're just like such badasses. And I just like went off on like how awesome white tigers are. And then they're like, what's your second favorite animal? And I said dogs. And then they were like, oh, why dogs? And I think I specifically said husky at that time. I used to like huskies more, but then I realized they aren't like cuddly enough. So
And they whine.
And they whine a lot. But no offense if you have a husky, because they're like gorgeous, gorgeous. I think I would do a Malamute husky if I was going to do one. Anyway. But then the guy who asked me this was like my friend's brother at a like group hangout who was like older and I think married or something. So anyway, he was like, yeah, what's your second favorite animal? And he was like, why? And then I said dogs because they're so cuddly and they're loyal and they're so emotionally in tune. Like they know your emotions even before you know your emotions. And they're just there for you right when you need them. Like they support you and all this stuff. And then he said to me, well, the first one is how you see yourself. The second one was what you're looking for in your partner. And I was like mind blown. Like it was so accurate for me. Like I was like, oh, the white tiger is how I see myself. And like the description that I've just gave of a dog and a husky, like that is what I'm looking for in a guy. And so anyway, after that guy did it to me, I started doing it on every date. I probably did it over 100 times. And it was
What was the weirdest answer of an animal you got?
Oh man.
Hippopotamus?
I do remember getting some weird ones. I'm trying to remember. Like obviously
people probably are trying to like impress you with it.
Yeah, I do remember like, cause I also do it to my girlfriends sometimes too. Like I did it to a lot of people. And I remember like asking one of my best friends, McKenna, and her first answer, she's like dolphin. And I was like, oh cool. Why a dolphin? And she's like, they're the only mammal that other than humans that enjoy and have pleasure during sex. I was like, tell me more about why that's so interesting to you. And so then she starts like going off about like dolphins and sex. And I was like, in my mind, like I was trying to hold it in because everything that she's saying, I'm like picturing her applying it to herself.
Oh my gosh.
So I remember like laughing so hard. And then finally when I got done with the exercise, I was like, so the dolphin's how you view yourself. Like you really want to have a lot of pleasure in sex. And she was like dying of laughter.
I wonder how accurate that is.
People, please try this out. I've never thought of sharing this on anything. This is the first time I've ever shared this publicly. Oh, I'm pumped.
That's a free secret.
That is a free little tip that I don't even have an Attract Your Husband Academy.
You should get that one.
I know. That one's a good one. So I do it. I wonder if I asked you. I'm trying to remember if I asked you. I probably did.
Probably not. We fast tracked.
That's true. I was just pretty obsessed with you immediately.
You were.
I didn't have to do all the...
And you still are.
Yeah, I still am. Are you uncomfortable?
I'm good.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about sadness in the holidays and I guess what to do about it, how to process it.
What are you sad about?
Me?
Yeah. Or what do you think people are sad about?
Well, I think for me and for other people, like I would say for me, like and people know this from like listening to my journey, but I think like even with where I'm at, I thought I would be further. And I know that probably some people are listening and they're like, probably like want to punch me in the face because they're like, I would be so happy if I was where you were, you know, that kind of thing. But it's, yeah, like we all can compare to other people. So it's like, yeah, in comparison to like some people, I guess that I'm really far along. But yeah, I think like I probably thought that we would have bought our next house by now. So I probably would have thought that I'd be like interior designing our home and like really settling into like something more long-term, because that's something that's really important to me is like when in this rental and knowing that we like have, you know, the down payment for a house from the sale of our last house. It's like, we're just kind of trying to decide like where we want to live and what kind of like, do we want to be closer to the action and something smaller? Or do we want to be like further away from the action and something bigger? Anyway, we're making a lot of different decisions right now. That's what I'll say. And I just want to settle. Like, I feel like I have moved almost every single year since I was 18, except for 2 times. So I was actually doing the math on my phone recently on a flight because, you know, I didn't have Wi-Fi, and I was like, what kinds of random lists can I make on my phone? Because that's what I always do is all these lists. And so I made a list of everywhere I've lived since I moved out of my parents' house. And so, yeah, it was just crazy to see like every single year, except for twice I stayed somewhere 2 years. So the longest I've stayed anywhere in the last 14 years was 24 months. And so I'm just like so ready for stability, and I want to be able to like put roots down a little bit more and like stay in a house for like even like 5 years would be a dream to stay somewhere 5 years. Like I'm just so tired of the moving, and it's more than just this house. It's more than just the moving. It's just like putting down roots more and feeling like security and feeling, and I've never been that person. I've always been so proud of myself. I've always been like, I am so good with change. I'm constantly moving. Like I always wore it as like a badge of honor. And now I'm like, no,
Yeah, you definitely did.
I'm tired of it. And I guess I'm willing to acknowledge that I'm tired now. And I want to just chill out and settle down and live a slow life and, feel a little bit more secure. So anyway, that's like one thing. And then obviously everyone probably has heard me say this before too, but there's definitely ways that I thought my career would be further along by now. So I think that sometimes the end of the year reminds people of that. And so for a lot of people, I think especially singleness, honestly, like when you're on Instagram and you're seeing all of these people like getting engaged or posting pictures in front of a Christmas tree looking like so cute with their loved one, or like, let's say they're having kids and maybe that's a really big desire of your heart. And you're like, not only just like having, all these like married couples and engaged couples all around you, but then maybe you're also starting to see like really cute babies and all this stuff. And it can be like, the comparison game can be so real. And then you get off your phone and you're like sitting there in your own reality, and your own reality can just feel like so small compared to other people's reality, even though those people who have the reality that you want are probably experiencing at times similar things where they scroll on social media and then they're like getting off and then being like, dang, like this isn't good enough or whatever, like,
Yeah.
But I just think that the holidays can really highlight singleness a lot, especially. But I think no matter what, the holidays can highlight like another year has come to an end. And maybe the things that I thought were going to come to pass this year did not come to pass. And how do I reconcile that? How do I deal with the disappointment of that? How do I keep hoping for more? I think that that's something that a lot of people wrestle with during this time of year.
Yeah, it's weird. I wonder why we always think about that during this time. I guess probably because like New Year's resolutions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And just like being at home like brings up, if you go home to, see your family, or like, I guess just even having time to stop and think for a second. It's just crazy how like the year's over already too.
Yeah. You're like, wait. And life starts, I think also it's like
goes faster.
Stressful how, life seems to go faster and faster and faster. It's like when you're a little kid and let's say you're like 7 or something and you're like, Mom, like, when am I going to go see this friend or something? And she's like, 4 days. And you're like, 4 days? That's
Seems
like
so long.
A lifetime. Like that's an eternity. How the heck will 4 days? That's going to just take years to get there. And now things that are 4 days away, like, oh shoot. Like I can't even keep my head on straight,
4 days seems like tomorrow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What do you feel like for you are some of the things that are like things that maybe you thought were going to happen this year that didn't happen the way you thought?
I don't know. This has been like my worst year in sales, so that's fun. So I thought I'd be doing better in my career. I don't know. This has been an interesting year. I don't know if we've talked about it on here or not, but like trying to figure out what I want to do with my life.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel better now. Like it's getting better, but this is the first year I've been like really not questioning things, but haven't been like so goal oriented and like trying to figure out what my next steps are and like know everything. It's like, I just haven't felt like myself. So it's just been a weird year of like getting, not weird because it's been good because we've gotten closer to God and like have been working through a lot of that stuff, which has been awesome. But it has definitely been like a year of wrestling with God, wrestling with myself around like, okay, you should be a goal oriented person. Like, why do you not know what you want to do with your life? Why do you not have goals? Why are you not motivated like you used to be? And just like, but also at the same time, like, okay, is this okay? Like, God, what are you trying to help me understand during this time? So it's just been a big year of like reflection, questioning, trying to go slower than I normally go, but also like not really trying to accomplish anything.
Yeah.
Which has been weird. I mean, I've done, like, I say that, but like, I did a half Ironman this year. I did a High Rocks this year. I did a lot of fitness stuff.
Yeah.
And I definitely like didn't slack at my job. I tried really hard. I think there's just a couple things that were like disappointing from my job, like deals that I lost. And yeah, I mean, in this year in particular, I thought I'd be further along with the current job I'm at, and that just hasn't happened.
Yeah. I feel like the word that I was hearing as you were saying all that is uncertainty.
Yeah.
And I think that like the uncertainty of a lot of things, like decisions that you and I are making together, and uncertainty around, being like, am I going to be in sales for my whole life? Or like, are there other things that I want to pursue with my life? And, just some of those bigger and deeper questions. And then just not knowing, like, I think the uncertainty can be so tough. And I think about what's interesting is like with relationship stuff, like that's like the most uncertain thing there is. I feel like I feel like health and fitness, there can be uncertainty, but like,
you can control it.
Yeah, there's a lot more controllables. Yeah. And like, even if it's like, I know a lot of times like it's hormone stuff, so it's not always just like food and exercise, but like, there's just, there's like more you can control. And then same with career, even career can feel like a little bit more controllable in a way, usually, because you're like, okay, well, if I do this, this, and this, then like this will be the outcome. And with relationships, I think that there sometimes are more controllables than people are really are willing to say that there are, right? Like there are things you could be doing, like doing the course, and like really starting to do some of this like inner work and reflection and journaling on what's gone well in past relationships, what hasn't, what questions should you be asking on dates, who exactly are you looking for, what are your non-negotiables, and what are things that aren't your non-negotiables, and leveraging your network and like putting yourself out there and pulling a Janelle and asking someone for a date. Like there are more controllables than we say there are, but I would say probably more so than other categories of life, I feel like meeting your person feels less controllable than others, right?
100%. Because it's like, you don't know who that person is, what's out there. Like, and it's not just you, it's other people. Yeah. It's another person. Yeah. So like what you just said, like your job or like what you're doing or your fitness or your relationships with like your family or friends, like, but like who you're going to spend the rest of your life with is such a big, like frustrating unknown, especially if you have friends that are like, married or engaged or dating seriously or have kids, and you're like looking around and you're thinking, oh man, I wish I was at that level or in that phase of life. Yeah. So, but then you're like, well, I don't want to force it. Oh, I think that's the problem though, is like sometimes you'll like start to get anxious and like looking and looking and looking, and like you just get so desperate that you find somebody and you're like, all right, well, I'm just ready to like get married, so this is going to be the person, and that's what it is. And I think like, I don't want to say that's wrong, but also, I mean, at a certain time, like you do feel like you're ready, and then if that other person feels ready, then yeah, maybe you're going to do it, but like you want to make sure it's the right person. Yeah. I don't know if I'm making sense. No, like, I do know what you're saying. It's like sometimes I think if I met you a couple years before I did, and I wasn't like saved or like on my journey, I don't know if the timing would have been right for us. But since like we were both on the same path, like God, I feel like aligned it where we both were ready. But I don't know. I guess I'm just trying to say like, don't force it. But at the same time, like timing is a big thing too. Yeah. That doesn't make any sense what I just said. No, I'm picking up what you're laying down though. And I feel like I'd be kind of in a cycle, like where I really want to meet my person. I felt very ready to be married. All of my best friends were already married. I felt like I was like the single friend. I will say when I moved to California, they got a little bit better. Yeah. But yeah, I was the single friend, fifth wheeling, ninth wheeling. I remember I have like all these journal entries of like all these different wheelings that I was, where I was just always the wheel. But then I would get so exhausted and tired of being single. So then I would find someone, and then like they'd be like a good person or whatever. And I would be like, okay, cool. And I'd kind of like latch on to them, be like, this is great. And then I would date them. And then if I was being honest, I probably knew there were red flags or yellow flags like earlier on, but I ignored them because I was so tired of being single. So then I would stay in that relationship for a while. And then one day I'd kind of like wake up and be like, Janelle, what are you doing? Like, this isn't your person. So then I would be like, I'm going to set a new high standard. And then I would set a new standard and
Then I'd be single for a while and I'd go on dates, but I'd walk away really quick and no, 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 no. And then I'd get tired of being single and I'd get tired of saying no to the guys that I was going on dates with. And then I'd settle into something again that wasn't right for me. And so
Yeah.
it definitely was a process. And
That's a good way to describe it.
it is like a cycle that's tough to break. And I don't know. I mean, I feel like luckily I just kept being willing to walk away.
But it's
eventually.
because it's hard though, because like you could sit here and like in your rational mind, you could be like, okay, well, if you're listening, just like set a high standard and like just say no to people until you find your person. But then like on the flip side, like that's really hard to do because what are you going to do? Like never going to date somebody again. Like when you date, like you go through and you learn things and and you're like, okay, I like this or I don't like this or, these are the types of qualities or traits I value in a person, or this is how I need to show up to get that next person or to get my future spouse. So it's hard because it's like, you don't want to go in the vicious cycle of what you just said, but you also don't want to be like so closed off.
Yeah.
I don't know. How do you balance like being super clear with who that person is and who you want to marry, and also like being open to like going through experiences? Because it's really hard to like know the very first time you meet somebody.
That's true. Yeah. I think that's a really good question. I think, yeah, a lot of times, well, you can base on a feeling after a first date.
Yeah.
Like, I think for me, I would usually like, if after the first day I wasn't that excited, but they were like a good person, I'd be like, okay, I'll try it a second time. Maybe like second night, I'll feel like more chemistry or excitement. But if I came home from the second date and I still wasn't excited and it was kind of like, oh, I guess I'll go hang out with him again.
That's when you're at your best though. But like when you're at your worst, like maybe that second date, you're like, okay, it's fine. Like I've been kind of lonely. Like I'm kind of sick of showing up as like the fifth or ninth wheel. So like maybe I'll bring this person to like the next function and like it'll be casual, but like at least I'll be there with somebody. Then you go and have an experience with this person and you're like around some people and you're like, it's fun and it's cool. So then you like start to like them a little bit more.
Yeah, that's true.
So maybe coming back to the question, it's you gotta be quicker to make the decision. Like it doesn't mean you can't go on dates. It doesn't mean you can't date people, but like look yourself in the mirror and be like, is this the right person or not? And then like in your heart of hearts, you should know that answer. And like, sure, go on a second date, but like don't keep dragging it around.
Yeah. I think like that probably does apply to maybe 90 to 95% of scenarios. And then there's going to be like 5 to 10% of scenarios where it's like, he really does seem like the right guy for you. You could be really excited about him. He could have like all the right stuff on paper or whatever. And you guys might end up dating for a while. And then maybe the yellow flags or red flags start to like show up later on.
Yeah.
And there start to be like more problems down the road. And then it's just like one of those things where it's like, well, you just didn't know. Or sometimes like, I mean, one guy I dated was just like highly manipulative and like painted himself under a facade that I like completely fell into. And so sometimes like you fall into the facade of someone, you just didn't see all of their, you know, all the ways that they were actually like manipulating you and stuff. So like some of that is just like giving yourself grace on that journey. But like, I guess it's like you kind of with dating have to have a little bit of tough skin sometimes and be able to like be like, God has something better. God has something better. God has something better. Like, and I know that's so much easier said than done. So I feel like a jerk even saying it.
It's so easy to say it now, but like when you're in the moment and you have emotions and you are investing time and you feel the feelings of being lonely or like you should be in a certain place, like all that's super real.
Yeah. Or you like, you do love them. And I think sometimes one of the hardest places to be in is being like, I really love this person. Is this as good as it gets? Like something maybe feels like it's slightly missing, but it's the best you've ever experienced when it comes to love. So then you're like, well, I don't know. Gosh, maybe this is it. Like there are parts of me that are maybe like slight question marks, but overall it's really good, you know? And so that's where it's tough. Cause then you kind of, I was almost thinking about like some sort of like a graph or like an axis where it's like time being single and then like awesomeness of guy or something like that. And you're like, do I want to risk potentially like 2, 3, 5 more, 10 more years of singleness? And will that amount of years of singleness be worth the guy? Like, will he be that much better? Or what if there isn't even anyone better? So then should I just stay with that person? You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's hard.
Does that make sense?
Dang, getting married is so interesting.
I mean, I just know for you and I, like we felt so much peace about it.
That's the key word is peace.
And,
Peace and not settling.
Peace and not settling. But yeah.
Because you can really know if like, oh, am I settling? Because it's like, I don't know. You shouldn't, I just don't think you should be questioning it that often or at all. Like I never once questioned that you were my person.
Yeah.
Like we were friends before, so like I wasn't thinking of you that way. But like once we started getting involved and like dating and we're romantic,
and I always feel like when you say we were friends before, it's always kind of a funny thing because it's like we
weren't friends.
We were Instagram followers of each other. We were not like in friend groups hanging out. We weren't like friends.
But we like got to know each other. Anyways.
Yeah.
The point is like I never once questioned it. And it's like here's a question. I wonder, do you feel like you should be allowed to question if you're with the right person? Like if you start to question that, do you feel like that's the right person, or do you think that happens and you should give people grace for that?
That's a good question. Cause I feel like some of my friends told me that they like felt like slightly unsure sometimes during their dating. But then like I remember one of my friends saying like, she asked one of her mentors, like, when did you know for sure that was your person? And her mentor's answer was, I didn't actually know until I was walking down the aisle. And that's when I became sure.
That's crazy.
And that to me, like, doesn't feel very settling. Like, I personally was like, okay, I don't want to have to wait till I'm walking down an aisle. But to an extent, there is a decision, right? And that's why you hear about like people who have arranged marriages. And sometimes there's like really successful arranged marriages from other countries where they really do fall deeply in love because there is a...
Sorry, Denny.
Whoa, what are you doing?
I just got excited.
Oh, okay. Frankie just hit his hand really hard on the couch. Then Denny leapt in the sky because she was deep sleeping. On this point
though. It's so good.
Okay. I lost my train of thought. Okay.
So I'll pick up where you left off.
Thank you.
I feel like you want to get as close to finding the right person as possible, but at a certain point in time, you just need to make the decision that you're going all in and like that's your person, and you're gonna fight through anything, and like there's no plan B.
Yeah.
Because I feel like that's what you and I do, where it's just like there's obviously no thought of like, okay, well, we'll split up or divorce or whatever. And it's like, thank God we've never like ever had a conversation or fight where it's like, that's even an option.
Right.
But I just feel like you and I know that we would never even think of that, even if it got really bad or like we argued it all to that point. But I think that's what you said. Like, it's a decision.
Yeah.
But it's so interesting though. Like, okay, when do you decide then?
I know. Shoot.
Bringing up a lot of good points.
You're asking really a lot of good questions. I think it's hard because it's like, for me personally, I know everyone has a different journey, and I do want to start something like Frankie and I are excited about for 2025 is to start bringing other guests on the show, sharing their love stories and stuff. So I think these will be good questions for us to ask other guests. Cause like for us, like it really was one of those, like, when you know situations. It wasn't like there was this whole, like, I'm confused, we broke up a few times, but then we got back together. Like, we didn't have any of that. But you do hear of successful marriages where that stuff happens. Yeah. So it's not to say it can't happen. But I also don't like super recommend it. Like, if you're breaking up a bunch, it's not the best recipe. Like, I don't know. Like, that's some of the stuff that I don't feel like I have full answers because I know our answer. And so I feel like tempted to always tell people like, follow Frankie and I's journey.
I know, but there's so many different ways to do it.
But there's a lot of different ways to do it. So I know that our way of falling in love, like, I love when I meet other people who fell in love like us, where it was like passionate, so sure, quick marriage, like, this is my person. And it's just like, you and I have both also have like extreme passionate, like, personality styles. Yeah. And so I feel like that like matches our energies. But there's a lot of people who are more like tried and true, slow and steady. And they're probably maybe not going to have this like, maybe super quick chemistry filled, like, you're my best friend, I know this is my person, like, immediately. I will say, like, I was talking to one of my best friends recently about like her and I became friends really quickly. Like, we met and like literally I think within like a few months we're calling each other best friends. Like, we just knew so quickly. Yeah. And then like she's in the dating process and whatnot, and I was saying to her, I was like, remember how it felt like when you and I became best friends and how we like knew so quickly, like, you're my best friend. It didn't take us like years to like get to this place. It literally was within a couple months. And like the minute we met, there was like an instant connection for our best friendship or I guess to say for our relationship or friendship in that meeting. And then like we lived in 2 different states and we just like instantly became really good friends, started doing Zoom calls all the time, phone calls all the time. Like it was kind of like wild. And I told her, I was like, think about what you and I experienced. And I was like, and no offense, that Frankie and I's experience was like that on steroids. And she's like, I'm obviously not offended. Of course, your relationship with your husband is going to be more than like what we have. And I was like, that's kind of like what I think when you meet your person, it should feel like a really awesome best friendship that's like you feel so excited, and it shouldn't have to necessarily take like years and years and years of like building your best friendship, that you like know that you like love being around this person. I didn't have to like talk myself into being friends with her, being like, she's nice, she's cool. Like we just became like instant.
I know.
But I know that's not everyone's style. So that's
but don't you think it should be though?
I don't know.
Like, I mean, that might not be everybody's style where they're like, super wild and crazy like you and I are about stuff, but like doesn't every human being like have the capacity to have best friends? And like if you're gonna have a best friend, like shouldn't that be your wife? Okay,
so let me ask you a question about some of your best friends. So like Marty and Alex, you met them at Cisco when you were doing like sales training. How soon, like after meeting them, how soon would you say that you guys were like really connected or like attached to the hip kind of thing?
Soon.
Like how, like give us data.
Well, Marty, probably not me and Marty, because like we weren't hanging out all the time because we were like in a different like class for the work. But like once we started hanging out, we became very quick friends. And
then what about Alex?
Same with Alex.
So
no. I was good friends with both of them quickly.
Okay. So like within
a month.
A month. So a month of being colleagues. You had other colleagues at the same time that you were all starting this program. But for some reason, you 3 like banded together and like became like really quickly close without it feeling like it was some like arduous process, right?
Right. No, yeah.
And so I just think that like there's like a clicking that happens with like best
I just remember like, because I was just myself around both of them, like, and they liked that, and I liked who they were. That sounds weird to say, but like, I don't know, in a corporate setting, you can like kind of put on, I got to be all business like. And I remember me and Marty bonded because I was like calling him out for like chewing tobacco in the office, and because I thought he was like drinking coffee while he was doing it. I was like, yuck. That's like your 8th coffee that you've had today. What's wrong with you? And like he thought it was like the most funniest thing in the world. And then Alex and I bonded over working out all the time and like doing super hard stuff. Yeah. So it's, I don't know, it was just like easy. Yeah, it was easy. If that makes sense. Yeah. And it's like, I'm not like, I got to like find my best friend. Like it's not dating. You know what I mean? I'm just like being myself. So then maybe that kind of translates into dating. Like you don't want to try and be somebody you're not. Like you want to be who you are, and you're going to attract the right person. Right. Absolutely. I think like what I'm trying to get with the best friendship thing is that's like with these best friendships. And I think like a lot of people have, I know not everyone gets the, has best friends or really close friends. Of course, like I encourage that honestly, before you even find your husband, if you're really lacking community, finding best friends and finding community should be your number one goal before finding your husband, because your husband cannot be all things for you. Like your husband is going to be your best friend, but he can't be everything. And so you need to have other friends and other mentors and a community around you that you can do life with. And so if you really don't have very many friendships, I would focus first and foremost on getting some really solid girlfriends, or if you're a guy listening, really solid guy friends. And then go find your person from there. Like after you have your solid community, like if you're the kind of person who like your friends fall to the wayside while you are in a relationship, which we have had friends like that before, like that is a very, in my opinion, toxic quality. Like you should not be so obsessed and so wrapped up with your husband, or your, I guess in that situation, probably your boyfriend, but then maybe your husband, that you lose your friends. Yeah. So, but anyway, you should, in theory, we all have a best friend or a couple best friends or a couple close friends, right? And with those people, I would say analyze. This is actually an interesting thing. I've never thought this before. Analyze how you came to having that relationship with them. Was it kind of like what Frankie and I just talked about, where you have like instant connections and it was easy and you didn't have to try? Or was it someone who maybe when you first met them, like you kind of couldn't stand them, but then over time you started to really understand each other and you built this friendship, and then like now you guys really love each other and like have this really close connection that's based on mutual
respect and loyalty and longevity and, you know, those types of things. Like maybe how you're likely to fall, I was gonna say fall in love with, but like how you're likely to like, you do love your best friends. I don't know how to say this. Likely how you fall for your best friend or like do relationship with your best friend might be similar to how it would be best for you to do life with your significant other. So if you're more slow, steady with like best friendships, maybe that's the type of dating relationship that you would be looking for. Whereas if you're someone who's more like Frankie and I, where you like had really quick, easy best friendship relationships where it just like happened and you knew really quickly they're your best friend and you've been best friends for years, then you'll probably have that similar type of thing in your dating. And so hold out for that. Hold out for the person that it feels easy to be around. Hold out for someone who they literally feel like your best friend, like you're so like they feel literally the same to you as the way you felt when you met your best friend and how you guys grew your best friendship relationship, you know?
So true.
And I love this podcast and I feel like it has nothing to do with what we said it was going to be about.
Yeah, I know. We're going to have to do a part 2.
Yeah.
Because we're running out of time.
Yeah, we're running out of time. We need to do a part 2.
We'll do one. That'll be the next topic.
I did want to maybe just share 1 or 2 Bible verses that we had prepared for people who are potentially like having a hard time during the season and like living in that tension between still having hope for finding their person, but also like feeling the disappointment and letting themselves lament.
Yeah.
Lamenting is a big part of the Bible too. Like,
there's a whole section called Lamentations.
That's true. Lamentations. Maybe you should be reading Lamentations.
Lamentations 3:19-23. I remember my affliction and my wandering, the bitterness and the gall. I well remember them, and my soul is downcast within me. Yet this I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness.
Ooh, that's good. I like the song that's with that. There's like a hymn. Great is your faithfulness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's another really good one that I liked. Where is it?
About lamenting.
Yeah.
And let me say this while Frankie's about to read this Bible verse is that God is not afraid of your lament. Like God, just like a good friend or just like your parents or whoever it is, it's a safe space for you. Maybe it's your therapist. I don't know. Just like any of them that is a safe space. God wants to really be there for you in this sad time, in this disappointment. So like cry out to him and be like, God, I am frustrated. Like, I don't understand. Help me to understand. Help me to have supernatural strength. Help me to see like you see. Help me to understand a vision. Help me to have clarity. Help me to take action on things I need to be taking action on. Like,
yeah,
cry out to God and tell him how you're feeling because your emotions aren't too much for God and God does want to comfort you.
Yes, I agree. I mean, I was going to add on to that.
Yeah.
And I think like, and this is me preaching to myself too, but when I feel like I'm going to pray, or my time with God has to be like in prayer where I'm like praying like, oh Lord, like, thank you for how great you are. Like, I pray that I get out of this situation. Yes, you should do that. And also you should do what Janelle was just talking about, where it's like, just talk to him.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be this like fancy, like Christian language where like you have to use all the right words. You can be like, God, I'm freaking bummed out right now. Life is hard.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm pissed.
I don't have the spouse that I thought I was going to have. I'm 34 years old. Like, I'm not crushing at my career. Like, I don't know what's going on. Like, I could freaking use your help right now. And I need you to show up.
Yeah.
And it's like, you can talk to God that way. Like, you can get angry. You can wrestle with God. Like, don't curse him and don't curse your situation, but like, you can be real with him. And like, the Bible talks about that. Like, David wrestled with God. Job wrestled with God. Like, there's so many stories of God, of men and women in the Bible wrestling with God.
Yeah.
And God didn't turn his face away from him. He eventually showed up, but like, you don't need to come and like have a conversation with God and like have the perfect prayer, say the perfect thing, and like be all holier than now. Like, just be real with God and he'll be real with you. And then take time to just sit and like meditate, not like in the new age way, but like on the Holy Spirit, and just be like, I would suggest get your frustrations out, just talk to like a friend, like you're venting to your friend, your mom or your dad or whoever you would vent to, and just be like, Holy Spirit, I need your help. Will you please guide me? And then just sit there and like be silent. You don't need to turn on worship music. You don't need to turn on a podcast. Like just silent everything out, put your phone away, and just sit there and like see how the Holy Spirit shows up, because he will. And I think that in this world we live in, and again, this is like for me more than anybody else, like we overcomplicate things. We try and say, okay, if I listen to this podcast, or if I turn on this worship music, or if I do my gratitude journal for 30 minutes, and then I do this prayer, and then I do my I am statements, and then I go on my prayer walk, and then I listen to worship music for 15 minutes, I'll be out of this situation. And like, I know everybody's thinking yes, because how many times have we done this? Like you will do that over and over and over and over again. And like, it's this vicious cycle. And that's honestly, that's like religion. And that's like, you're just going through the motions. Like forget all that, be real with God and let him work through you, and like just be impressed with what he can do. Like be on the lookout for it. So I would just say, if you're frustrated during this time and you feel like nothing's clicking, just like be real with God and let him work and see what happens.
Yeah, I love that. And obviously, like, there's nothing wrong with doing all of those things, like doing the prayer walk and the gratitude. Like, yes, do those things.
Sure.
And also, I just feel like if you don't feel an instant shift, don't beat yourself up for it. Like, give yourself grace and like know that God sees your hurting heart. Like sometimes like it can feel like your heart is literally like breaking into two. It's so painful. And like a visual that I always visualize, like when it feels like my heart's breaking over something, like I just picture God's hands coming and grabbing the two sides of my heart, which granted, when I'm thinking of a broken heart, I'm thinking like the emoji, not like what my
beating organ,
not like the organ, but I'm picturing the heart emoji, and I'm picturing God's hands around the heart emoji, and him like putting the two halves like back together and like holding it in his hands. Or maybe it's just even holding it in his hands and maybe the two halves aren't even fully coming back together. Like maybe there still is that crack there, you know, but God's holding it. And so I just like to picture God holding it and being like, God's not mad at me for feeling this.
Yeah.
God's not playing tricks on me. God is good. I think like for me, and I think I say this like every podcast, but it's like this constant coming back to God is good. Yes. God is working all things for my good. God is working all things for my good. And so like coming to the end of this year, lamenting things that haven't happened, as you start to think about, you know, this new year, and still give yourself space to want to goal set, give yourself space to like, maybe your goals look different than other times. Like I think you and I were talking about like this year, we're probably gonna do goals a little bit differently, and maybe we'll do a podcast on that. So it's not to say like don't set goals or don't have a vision, but maybe you're being more gentle with how you're thinking about it. Or maybe it's more like God, like this year I'm going to be more connected to God than I've ever been. Instead of being like, this year I'm going to meet my husband, it's like, this year I'm going to be the most peaceful I've ever been, because the Holy Spirit is going to be working in my life so much. Like I'm going to spend more time with Jesus than I've ever spent with Jesus in my whole life. Like maybe those are the metrics that actually you're utilizing this year for 2025. But where was I going with that? As you're like wrapping up this season, and if you're feeling this, like any disappointment or sadness about not being as far as you thought you would be, just realize that God is good and he's working all things for your good, but he also isn't mad at you for lamenting. He's not mad at you for, you know, crying out to him and even like sharing your frustration with him. Like, God, what do you want me to do different? Like, is there something I should be doing? And that's actually another podcast topic we're going to do, is like, how do you know if you're self-sabotaging at something you should be doing versus just timing? Because sometimes it's just a timing thing too. So we'll talk about that on a future podcast. But Frankie has a haircut that he needs to leave for.
Gotta go.
I got my haircut today. I don't know if anyone
Looking
noticed.
good.
My hair's looking pretty good. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you for being a part of this podcast. And one thing I want to share is from the Spotify Wrapped. I don't think I shared this last time. 44 different countries listened to this podcast this year, and 261 people had this as their top 10 podcast.
Thank you.
So thank you everyone for listening.
Glory to God.
And glory to God. And we're praying for you, and we're going to continue to pray for you in 2025. We pray for the listeners of this podcast that you're successful and that God shows up in your life, and that, just that you I don't know what I'm trying to think. I'm like, I think just that you grow, really, right? Like growing internally and externally. So,
All
love
righty.
you guys. Mwah!
Bye.